Hi, you could be forgiven for thinking that all of the AI hype is just that BS, overselling, underdelivering. And you could also be inundated with the AI word salad. But the problem is the field is moving so fast. Number one, from the underlying tech, the chips, the infrastructure, small language models. Number two, to the math of models, neurosymbolic AI. Three, to AI-based apps for productivity, Notebook and Lindy. Four, to the complexity of LLM architectures, deep reasoning, and mixture of experts. To the emergence of no-code agent building. To the vast number of enterprise and scientific applications, talking now probably in the tens of thousands. To personal and social uses and their implications, and to the very complex area of AI ethics. And that isn't the half of it. It's bewildering, but in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk you through what you need to know to get ready for 2026 in the world of AI. I'm Paul Gibbons. I'm the author of Adopting AI, the first book on AI adoption and organizational change. It's a must-read for folks thinking about how AI will affect their future as business leaders, as parents, and as citizens. My keynotes help businesses understand AI adoption from a change perspective and help them get the human side of AI right. Hot take number one. Frontier models are evolving much more quickly than even researchers and AI maximalists predicted. GPT-5 dropped in late 2025, and it isn't just incrementally better. Early signals suggest that it handles reasoning, tool use, and context windows at a qualitatively higher level. That means it can take on complex, real-world workflows without brittle failure modes. In other words, it's the first model that feels less like an autocomplete and more like a general reasoning system. Most users pre-GPT-5 were defaulting to GPT's less powerful models. But now the new model auto-selector has led to a surge in the use of reasoning models, which takes much longer but is far more powerful. And that is just one of a dozen frontier models. Other models have different superpowers. Many are leaner, some are faster in some ways. But GPT-5 is the Swiss Army knife of large language models. Now, what do you need to know for 2026? You're going to hear a lot about mass intelligence. And perhaps that's a separate theme in its own right. There are now 1 billion daily users of these much more powerful LLMs. And if you think about what that means, we have 1 billion human brains connected to these AI brains from a planetary perspective. That means, in my view, that many of those billion people are thinking more deeply, reasoning better, doing better research, and making better decisions. And that is a very intriguing possibility. Vibe coding. Look, Ma, I can code. No syntax, no IDE, just describe the vibe and watch an app stand itself up. What you need to know for 2026. By 2030, AI assisting coding skills will be mandatory, like Excel use is today. Take my word for it, you will have to know how to stand up basic small code, no code AIA agents to do any of your knowledge worker work. And this is going to create some winners and losers. Entry-level coding jobs have collapsed. And at the other end, Meta reputedly paid someone a contract of $1 billion. I don't know if I quite believe that, but it's not even Barcelona or Liverpool do things like that. And a new generation of digital innovators is creating AI first and AI only companies from scratch. And hot take number three, there is a chasm between the top 5% and the rest in AI adoption at the country, the corporate, and the individual level. I somewhat annoyingly ask professionals, whether they be doctors or other medical practitioners, educators in whatever walk of life they are, how much are you using AI and what are you using it for? And it ranges from, I use it constantly, all day, for everything. It supports every decision I make in my life, to people who say, God, no, I wouldn't be caught dead using it. And you would think somewhere among the hype, the capex, the sky-high valuations, the tech bros that launched 1 million blog posts, that the business was on the cusp of a revolution. But most middle businesses in the middle, that is to say, outside the top 50 or 100 businesses in the world, are nowhere. The revolution is coming, but we can't begin to see the cusp of the revolution yet. And in countries, the US and China are so immensely far ahead of everyone else, their competitive advantages will perhaps only expand. Why? Because they have superior AI ecosystems from hardware all the way to the application layers. What you need to know for 2026. For individuals, companies, and countries, if you don't master the use of this technology, you're going to be irrelevant in 5 years, unemployable or uncompetitive or worse. And here's what I wrote adopting AI about, the next hot take, enterprise adoption. Very few companies outside the top 200 in the world have a clue what to do or how to do it. First of all, it demands enormous resources, and the knee-jerk corporate reaction is inevitably to try and throw some money at the problem, at hardware. But here's the thing most people get wrong about AI. The bottleneck isn't the tech. Even ChatGPT 3.5, ChatGPT 4, early models, seems like in the dark Jurassic era, had enough processing power to handle most enterprise level text. The gap, the adoption gap, isn't the tech. It is the people side. And here's what you need to remember. There are organizational static structures, processes, pre-existing workflows, mindset, culture, leadership, behaviors, managerial incentives, etc., etc., etc. And these are some of the complex reasons that AI adoption is struggling and that many firms to this day are not getting the return on investment that they think they should be getting in the sorts of times that they think they should be getting it. The other reason is bankrupt change management models, the models that have been in use. They were created in the late 80s and 1990s. You still see them rear their heads. John Connor's model, ProSci's model, those have been laid waste, laid bare by the passage of time and research on organizational change, but yet, still, they are have an installed base of users. Vendor lock-in, you might call it, which makes it very difficult to get AI-driven change to happen. So what you need to know for 2026 is that, I called my book People First for a reason, is that the way to get AI done is to put the human side of it first. Culture, leadership, workflow redesign, and change management and cultural readiness. Do that and you can anticipate much better results. Let's talk about memory. You remember the early days of ChatGPT where you'd ask it something and then you'd walk away and you'd ask it something else and it'd completely forgotten the first conversation. It had the memory of a goldfish. Now, how can something help you with a complex business process or anything in your home and personal life? It has the memory of a goldfish. Well, it just can't. So now current models have what we call long horizon coherence, and that is to say, my model, and I work on a dozen projects at a time. By the way, I don't necessarily recommend that that's a good idea, but I work on dozens of projects at a time. It remembers them all. So I don't have to say, reintroduce context every time I want to ask it a question or to talk about something to do with one of my existing projects. And it also remembers links between them, which is an extraordinarily good thing. So very, very powerful, and memory is the new superpower. As I said, the processing power, compute and inference, they've expanded, but they were already more than good enough for most enterprise tasks. Now, with the rise of agentic AI, and this is what you need to know for 2026, the rise of agentic AI has sped up the development of models with Hughes Memory's 1 million tokens or 2,500-page multi-volume book. So to be a power user, you have to learn how to pair AI with memory, and the memories I'm talking about here aren't about the last episode of Friends, but the project data and the organizational data or the personal data that is relevant and important to you so it solves your problems and not abstract problems. And then we get on to prompt to context engineering, a very similar and related topic. Prompt engineering was the word that soared onto our screens in early 2023 with ChatGPT 3.5. Asking better questions is one of the most important superpowers that humans need to have to use AI well, and most people aren't very good at it yet. Now, here, let's break it down for you. If you're going to ask for a recipe for chicken, you're going to be underwhelmed by the model. It might give you a good answer, it might give you a bad answer. But if you ask it to have a PhD level conversation with you, you're going to have to give it some context. If you want a recipe for chicken, a prompt will do. But if you want to run a restaurant, you need to learn context engineering. And that's the big, big skill for 2026 is context engineering, beyond prompt engineering to context engineering. And then we've got emo AI. So I was blown away by a study that I think it came out in the Harvard Business Review that said that the #1 personal use case for LLMs was a therapist or coach. Now, I'd already done a little of that myself. I thought it was remarkable, but the fact that everybody seemed to be doing it was very interesting to me. And of course, some people are horrified for good reasons and dumb reasons. The good reasons are that people with fragile mental health don't, or at least weren't, getting the kind of hard pushback that a therapist is supposed to offer when people talk about self-harm or people have dangerous delusions or perhaps talking about helping others. There are guardrails in the profession for that, and we hadn't yet built those into AI. Well, that's a problem, of course, with this use case surfacing the way it has that people are trying to solve. The bad reasons can be summarized in 2 words. Ew, ick, I want a person. I understand that up to a point, although some people do prefer the anonymity of talking to a bot rather than making themselves vulnerable to a human being. But leaving that aside, some studies have said that AI is at least as good as a human therapist or coach. Now, double click on that and check it for yourself, but that seems to be the way in which research is pointing. And here's what you need to know for 2026. This will expand multifold. And what's exciting about this is the concept of access. So even were it more or less the same or just not as good, an executive coach can cost $800 an hour. A therapist can cost $500 an hour. A newly minted counselor or coach can charge $200 an hour. And not everybody has that kind of money kicking around if you want to see someone for 8 weeks or 10 weeks or perhaps longer. And there are underserved communities and communities with poor behavioral health support and the less well off. And that to me is the most exciting thing about this is everybody has access to, I believe it was Freud who called it the talking cure. Very exciting stuff for 2026. And then education. So the first thing we discovered in 2024 when ChatGPT 3.5 is students who learn, generally speaking, much faster than their adult peers, learned how to cheat very, very fast. And then teachers began to see these essays that turned in more or less polished speech when they were used to getting a jumble of middle school or high school English, began to get suspicious. And of course, they freaked out. The professors had what scientists describe as their WTF moment. Well, policies are catching up, and policies move a lot more slowly than 16-year-old children trying to write an essay on Hamlet do. What you need to know for 2026 is this is the front line, and you need to, as a parent, as an educator, as a high school principal, or president of a university, wherever you are in the education chain, you need to be on top of this. Because pretending that this will go away, like you may like or hate artificial intelligence, large language models, too bad. They're not going anywhere. Now, not that there aren't ethical problems, and I've written an entire book, half of which is on the ethics of it. It is going to be transformative. It is going to change the world. It is going to change the culture of education. It will begin to change educational structures and expectations. It's going to be transformative. And so you get on top of this, learn what it can do, think deeply about the policy implications, and put inside policies that support students' learning and support the integrity of the university or college or high school, or you don't. Now, I teach my kids, if I may add a personal note, the most important thing that you can learn is learning how to learn with AI. So all the courses you're taking in university, all the courses you're taking in high school, but if you can learn how to partner with this stuff, not in such a way as it's a substitute for learning or it's a substitute for the hard work, but if you can learn how to partner with this to deliver excellence, unimaginable excellence at the high school level, delivering master's quality essays at the high school level. If you're doing it to produce the same kind of essays you would have produced anyway, you know, the 2-page, 3-page grunted out essay on Homer or something like that, you're not using it right. It could and should raise the bar for academic excellence throughout, not the high school, but the world. So ask it. Ask it about Homer. Ask it about black holes. And onward, we have hallucinations. So the AI doomers are like, yeah, man, but what about hallucination, man? You know, like, you know, there's things FOS sometimes. Well, first of all, in hallucinations hallucination rates are tumbling. And second of all, you're holding it to an absurd standard, because I don't know a human being that is perfectly accurate and truthful in every instance. So all of a sudden we want this machine to respond to us in a deterministic and 100% truthful and accurate way and be flaw-free. That's not going to happen, and particularly it's not going to happen for new technology. So hallucination rates are tumbling. I'm going to throw a number out there, something like 1.6% for some queries, and more complex tasks, it can get a little higher. Here's what you need to know about that for 2026. The great news is it's going to make users much, much cleverer and better. Metacognition and critical thinking are absolutely essential in the AI age. And let me tell you right now, as someone who's been teaching this stuff for decades, nobody does it well. People think they think critically when they think, oh, that's full of baloney, or that, that's uninformed, or that's fake news. That's not critical thinking. In fact, in many ways, that's the opposite of critical thinking. In 2026, if you're going to be an AI power user, metacognition and critical thinking are your best friends. And then my favorite topic, and the one about which I could go on for many, many hours, is AI and scientific discovery. So I'm known for saying that business use cases are among the most trivial. The real juice is in scientific discovery. Over the course of human history, scientific invention has powered our journey forward, from starting with harnessing fire. I can't recall, it's about 50,000 years ago. In human history, our breakthroughs have come from humans using tools. We made tools, and then the tools reshaped us. GPT and its cousins, and this is a long, long discussion, are the most powerful tools that humans have ever invented. And so what you need to know for 2026 is we'll be seeing faster drug discovery, smarter materials, AI agents running scientific labs, better forecasts, better predicting, geoengineering solutions, fusion power. Watch this space, because 2030 will be unrecognizable scientifically. And then finally, let's talk about jobs. I remember the horror stories back when I was first talking AI ethics, perhaps it's a decade ago now, in 2015, when I was on tour talking about the ethics of AI. It was an abstract concept then, because many people imagined in 2015 that the main worries would come in 2050. Well, they're upon us. But the good news is AI has barely touched jobs so far. For all the purr clutching 5 years ago and 10 years ago, the jobs market worldwide is still robust. Under the previous administration, jobs and job growth were as tight as they have been in the United States since the 1960s. 2021, 2022, and 2023 were insanely tight job markets. AI is entering a very tight job market that still exists despite efforts to undo previous progress. They haven't yet done it. So there's two ways to think about this. One way is to think about AI as a substitute for human beings. I have long talks on why that's a silly idea. The other way is to expand your capability to innovate and create and to grow market spend and share and develop new products and all of that. And right now, a lot of firms are thinking about that. I worry in an economic downturn that's almost certainly coming in 2026 that people will begin to think about cutting jobs and begin to think about ways that AI can eliminate jobs. What you need to know for 2026 is your strategy can be one of the automate and cut, or it can be automate and expand. I know which I'd choose. And so there I am doing some talking. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please grab a copy of Adopting AI. It's about 40% AI ethics, about 30% AI adoption, how to get that right. And it's about 30% some insights into the effect of AI on education, and on parenting, and on art, and on the creativity industries, and all of that. I haven't ignored the ethical thing. This has been the ethical importance of the subject. 40% of the book is on that. These last 10 minutes that you've been listening to me, I make scant mention of ethics. I do quite a lot on that, and that's mostly where I get hired, is when I get hired to talk about AI ethics. So like and subscribe. Get in touch with me, paul@paulgibbons.net, if you'd like me to participate in your next conference or workshop. And thank you very much for listening.